Welcome in, my fantasy affarians, for another great week and great opportunity to help y'all win this week. Week 4, one of the most important weeks. So we'll get into it. I got my baseball in hand. I'm sipping on my pure Kentucky. Shout out to the Kentucky Wildcats for beating the Florida Gators yesterday at home. We are 5-0. It is beautiful. But we're not here to talk college. We're here to answer questions, and we're joined by our man Vandy Grad 92 on Twitter, Brian Craighead. Brian, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How about you, Brad? You sound like you're in a great time over there.
Oh, I'm high in the sky right now, for sure.
Who do y'all have next week?
I don't know. I have to look. I'm not sure. This was the first time I got to watch them live. It's because I live in Ohio, so they're not on, and I don't have SEC network to see some of those games. So I haven't been staying up too much. I just I watch it on my phone as it plays come in live or whatever. But I'll have to look. I'm not sure who we play next week.
Well, good luck next week. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping it turns out well. But we're gonna get kicked off right into some of our start sits. So check us out on Twitter, Fantasy Affair FF. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Check all of that stuff. Subscribe, rate, comment, send us questions on the website, ffaffair.com. Wherever you get your content, check it out. Shoot us some questions. We'll be more than happy to answer. But we're gonna move right into it. So from Liberty Media RE1 on Twitter says, hey guys, PPR league, I need to start 2 of these folks, Devonta Smith, Miles Sanders, or Kareem Hunt. Brian, where you at with that?
Oh, that's an awfully tough one. For sure, I'm going to go with Sanders on this one. He looked fine last week, but we only get a total of 5 touches. Oh, that's an awfully tough one. Looked that great, but I'll take him, and then I don't know. I kind of like to break up the team. I guess I'll go with Kareem Hunt, but that one between Devonta Smith and Kareem Hunt's tight for me.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. You definitely got to start Miles Sanders. He's averaging over 5 yards a carry. The question is, do you want to play both of these guys for the Philadelphia Eagles in that game this week? So I think I'm leaning Kareem Hunt as well, but I do see this as an opportunity for Nick Chubb to just get his, right? Last week, it was a Kareem Hunt game. Nick Chubb still carried the ball over 20 times, but just 80 yards, no touchdown. He didn't get a lot of red zone work either. So I see this possibly being one of those games where Nick Chubb just absolutely eats, but he still provides you a good solid floor. The problem with Devonta Smith is Jalen Hurts he doesn't play that alpha game. He goes to whoever the open guy is, however that play is designed, and he's rolling out and running for his life all over the place. So using a lot of plays with his legs, and it doesn't look like Devonta Smith is commanding targets in that offense yet. So I'm okay going Sanders and Hunt here as well. All right, next up is Big Cheese at Lemke911 on Twitter says, need to start 1 PPR league, Corey Davis, Devonta Smith, Tim Patrick, or Jacoby Myers.
For me on this one, I'm going to have to go. I didn't choose my last question, but I'll go with Devonta Smith. My second, in all fairness, would be Tim Patrick with Jerry Jeudy still being out for another 3 to 4 weeks, and then finding out that KJ Hamler's out for the year. That would be my second choice. My first, Devonta Smith. So
all right, yeah, I think that's fair. And we got another person that might have some insight on this. He might have an opinion. Hat in hand, jersey on. He's clothed today, people, which is different than normal. Britt, our man, the FF Sandman on Twitter. Do you need me to repeat the starts? Actually, you know what? Screw that. We're not even going there yet. How you doing, man?
Gentlemen, it is raining outside. I have my new bucket hat. I have my jersey unfreshly washed. The Mariners are almost in the playoffs, ready to crush my soul during the game. I am fucking hyped. This is a pivotal week for us in football and in fantasy. Are you going 0-4? Are you going 1-3 and 2-2? Are you going 4-0 or 3-1? It's a big week, and as Eric sent us earlier, don't forget to get those offers out to take advantage of those teams that are panicking 1-3 and 0-4. And let's go help with somebody some weeks. What do we got going here, gentlemen?
Absolutely. Yeah, dude, we're ready. We've already answered a couple questions. I'm going to kick this next one to you. It's a PPR league. You need to start one. So Corey Davis, Devonta Smith, Tim Patrick, or Jacoby Myers. PPR. He only needs one.
I'm going Devonta Smith here. I don't trust McCorkle yet. I don't know if Bill Belichick's going to be letting him push the ball down the field, and McCorkle, I don't think, is throwing for over 250 yards in a game yet. JJ or James White being out could potentially funnel some targets Myers' way, but I feel much more comfortable going to Devonta Smith, even though he let up a little bit of a stinker last week.
Yeah, we're going to really make this convoluted for you, Big Cheese, because I'm going Corey Davis here. You've got that revenge game narrative for the Tennessee Titans. You've got the Tennessee Titans still without Bud Dupree, one of their premier pass rushers. Their defense has not looked good this year. And Corey Davis is the alpha there. I think Jamison Crowder being back and playing this week can only help him with some of those underneath routes. So I'm going Corey Davis. He's still seeing a ton of targets from Zach Wilson. And I think that volume's going to be there. So I'm going Corey Davis. And my second would also be Tim Patrick, right, Brian? You mentioned Tim Patrick. We saw him get a lot of work last week, and do a lot for your team, considering he's probably your wide receiver 4 or lower. So Tim Patrick, I think, is a solid play as well. And I do have the same concerns with Jacoby Myers as what Britt kind of talked about. So, all right. Let's move on to the next one. This is from Russ Hoffner at Russ92X. He says, need 2, and it's a 1-point PPR. It's a full-point PPR league. Darrell Henderson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cordero Patterson, Kareem Hunt, and Chuba Hubbard. Rookie sensation, I'm going to say. Even though he's not really sensation, but we hope that's the case after this week with CMC being out. So again, Darrell Henderson, CEH, Cordero Patterson, Kareem Hunt, or Chuba Hubbard. Let's go, Britt. Let's start with you first.
He just needs 1, right?
He needs 2.
Two?
Yep.
Patterson, Henderson, Chuba, Hunt. So Hunt's got to be in there just because he's been doing really, really well. He's, I think, running back 5 so far through 3 weeks. And then PPR, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Patterson here. I think what we've been seeing from Patterson is a more increasing involvement through the game, or through the passing game and the rushing game. He's almost rivaling Mike Davis's opportunities and touches through 3 weeks now, and I don't see that necessarily changing because he's clearly the more explosive back in the backfield, which is funny because he was a wide receiver last season. But I think I'm going Patterson and Hunt here and just trying to grab those PPR catching upsides.
Patterson and Hunt. All right, that's interesting. Brian, where are you at with it?
I'm definitely going somewhat contrarian. I'll stay with Hunt. That makes sense, especially in the PPR. But I'm kind of curious what we got from Chuba, I think it is. I'm kind of interested what we're seeing there. I'd go with him this week.
Interesting. Yeah, and I'm gonna muddy the waters a little bit more for y'all. I'm going Darrell Henderson if he plays. So he still has that questionable tag, and it hasn't come out yet for sure whether he's playing. So you got to keep that, take it with a grain of salt a little bit. If he plays, I'm going him, and then Kareem Hunt is my lock for these. If Henderson does not play, I'm going CEH, right? He's still the guy there. I know we've been somewhat disappointed with his work, but last week you saw a little uptick in his work, and you can only hope that you see that kind of continue against the Philadelphia defense this week. So I'm going Hunt and Henderson if Henderson plays, and if he doesn't, then I'm plugging CEH in. There's no way Cordero Patterson is making my lineup with these 4 guys.
I do have a little concern I want to bring up. I know for sure that Henderson's playing the late game. He did have limited practices all week. I wrote the article yesterday about the bumps and bruises. It's on the site as well. But then as of this morning, it sounded like Henderson was playing. But the important thing to remember is it's a late game, so make sure you got an alternate just in case.
Yeah, so since you're talking about articles, I'm going to plug out there our Week 4 Start Sit article by Andrew Jakes, right, at McLovin FFaffair on Twitter. So get to the website, ffaffair.com. Check that out, right? That is the go-to article for us right now in season, along with Britt's snap count articles every week that should tell you the story about what is going on inside of teams and hopefully give you some insight on who to plug in or who to go get before they blow up and explode onto the scene. So plug those two things as well. All right, next up from Joe Corton. JB Corton 21 on Twitter says Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts. Let's go, Brian. Brian, let's start you out. Hurts or Lamar?
For me, it's always going to be Lamar Jackson as long as he's healthy. And he'd had some midweek concerns with the injury report and all that. But as of this morning, he's good to go. So to me, I mean, you could go with Hurts if you want to, but for me, it's not even really that close. I'd much rather have Jackson.
All right, Britt, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm a little Lamar here. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a moderately disappointing real life game, yet he still put up quarterback 10 numbers, I think, last week. So I mean, he's gonna get you the points, but I don't think he's got that upside that Lamar does. Even though he's going against the Denver Broncos defense, they're definitely going to be prepared for him.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You talk about last week. It's really one of his best, Jalen Hurts, one of his best performances to date from the passing game, right? He had 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. They moved the ball, but it wasn't, when you watch, it wasn't actually a great game, right? From a fantasy perspective, it gave you some points and whatnot, but I don't know how you even think about benching Lamar Jackson. Would it surprise me if Hurts scores more points than Lamar Jackson? No, it wouldn't, right? Because he's got that same upside that Lamar has as far as rushing goes. But there's no way that I am benching Lamar Jackson, who I drafted as, to be my starting quarterback every week. And I want to see how good the Denver Broncos defense actually is. They've had 3 pretty cake weeks. And I don't know if their defense is actually as good as what we may think it may be or what it has been on paper right now. Whereas Kansas City has some pieces, right? Tyrann Mathieu is solid. He's very good at getting you to do things that you probably shouldn't do, right? Making it look like he's going one way when he's actually cutting on the ball. And I see Jalen Hurts with another couple interception games. And who knows, maybe they get a little bit of pass rush out of him. You never know. So I'm also going Lamar Jackson here as well. All right, let's move on to Adam Soto. It is at Adam Doce 787. So he needs an RB2. Michael Carter, Melvin Ingram, or Kenyon Drake. Who you starting here out of these 3? Britt.
Carter, Melvin Ingram, Gordon, Kenyon Drake. I'm going Gordon here. Baltimore's defense is fine. Michael Carter, so in my article I touched on this, but he's finally starting to get a little more involvement. He's getting a couple more opportunities than Ty Johnson, just not the snaps yet. But even then, he's going to need a workhorse load to give you any sort of meaningful fantasy finish, because that offense right now without Becton is broken. So until Becton's back and until he's starting to absolutely dominate the snaps, I'm not going to be starting him in any format. And that leaves me Melvin Gordon, who for some reason...
Mark Ingram is the other one.
Mark Ingram. Okay.
Yeah, so Mark Ingram, Kenyon Drake, or Michael Carter.
So that'll leave me Kenyon Drake then. Because at least, I mean, he's rushing like me in the backfield, right? 3 carries for a yard, but at least he's catching, and he's a top 4, I believe, in targets for running backs through 3 weeks. So he's definitely someone, especially because Josh Jacobs probably going to be out again. And if Josh Jacobs is back, it'll probably even help Kenyon Drake a little bit in terms of his efficiency.
Yeah, I mean, Drake is the smash out of these 3 for me. He's getting 6 targets a game. He's not getting the rushing work, right? Peyton Barber or Josh Jacobs is getting that, but he's giving you double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues every single week. There's no way I'm plugging a guy like Mark Ingram in my lineup who's getting 30 to 35% of snaps. And since Davis Mills has come in, he's not getting basically any work, right? He had, I think, 6 rushing attempts last week with Davis Mills, right? People are still living that high of Mark Ingram from week 1, where they played the Jacksonville Jaguars and were up big early. So they just fed the rock and slowed the game down. That's not the case this week. They're not going to be able to do that with Davis Mills. They're going to be chucking the rock. And I'm not trusting a guy, again, who's getting 30% of the snap share. And Michael Carter, New York's going to be down early, right? I believe against Tennessee. So I just don't see him being a plug and play. He's not the go-to guy yet, so I'm not trusting him in my lineup at all. Brian, where's your head at with these 3?
You've got to go Drake on this one. none of them are absolute perfect choices. But the one thing you have to wonder about Drake is after Barber got the majority of the carries last week, and Jacobs may be coming back. I wonder where that backfield's headed. But at the same time, you got more. I think you get more guaranteed touches with Drake, so you have to go that way.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So YouTube question, full point, PPR, fill in my flex spot. Chase Edmonds or Trey Sermon? I'll start this one off. I'm going, to me, this is Chase Edmonds all day, every day. He's on the field about 65% of snaps. The guy is getting receiving work and rushing work. He's a top 15 or 16 running back right now. And this dude hasn't scored a touchdown through 3 weeks. That tells you he's getting the work. He's got that PPR floor. He doesn't need a touchdown to be relevant. Trey Sermon, without that touchdown last week, goose egged you. Maybe not a 0, but it's not something you're happy with. 3, 4, 5 points, right? Chase Edmonds guaranteed for 5 or 6 points just off the receptions alone. Now that you add the yardage to that, you add the potential for a touchdown on top of that, I think he's absolutely a smash here. So, Brian, where's your head at between Chase Edmonds and Trey Sermon?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off you on that one. There's no doubt that Evans is just a slam dunk. In all fairness, the 49ers really don't like Sermon. For whatever reason, even in week 1, they debated on who was actually the better running back, Mitchell or Sermon, and they didn't even activate him. So I'm definitely think it's a slam dunk too.
Britt, any difference from you? You're muted, bud.
Edmonds is the Arizona GOAT. I mean,
yep.
he's going to be he's like 18% of the team's production as a running back, offensively yards. So like, he's a no-brainer for me.
Love it. All right, moving on. Ashton, I hope that helps you, Hasib. So Ashton says, Amari Cooper or Kenny Galladay? Brian, let's kick this one to you first.
Even though Cooper's really struggled the last 2 weeks, I think he's had like 6 catches for 50 yards. You've got to go with Cooper no matter what. I just don't like that whole Giants offense.
All right, Britt?
Yeah, I mean, it's Cooper because with Galladay, you're at the point where you're wondering if you're ever actually going to see him be productive on the field. Sterling Shepard and Slayton out would make you think that Galladay is going to be in for a big week, but he was basically playing the entire league, limited and continually getting downgraded and managed. So honestly, Galladay is one of those guys where I'm just trying to get out of it as much as possible right now. Cooper's a stud, and you just, like Brian said, he's had a couple rough weeks. 2 weeks to get those ribs a little healthier. We should be able to see him kind of come back a little bit with a vengeance.
Yeah. Look, I got a different perspective on Kenny Galladay, right? This guy didn't have much of an offseason. He was nursing some injuries. He didn't get a lot of time with Daniel Jones. It's a new team, so he's developing that chemistry. Look, this guy's still the down-the-field threat, right? He's the guy who's getting shots down the field. He just hasn't quite connected yet. Right? He hasn't killed you in a week, but he hasn't been somebody you're happy about. Now, I expect that trend. I expect the trend to start to go up with Kenny Galladay. He is a man on the field. This dude is good. So they just need to develop that chemistry, and I think it's going to get better as time goes on. So for me, I'm going to look for Kenny Galladay because he is dirt cheap in leagues right now. So I'm trying to get him. But in the context between him and Amari Cooper, I'm smashing Amari Cooper. Brian, to your point, he's had 2 disappointing weeks. However, he was playing hurt last week. So now he's a week removed from that injury. I think this is a bounce-back game for Amari Cooper, and he's going to be an absolute smash. I think Carolina is the flukiest 3-0 team out there right now. I don't think they're quite as good as their record. They're like the Denver Broncos to me. They're a 3-0 team that I just don't trust right now. Outside of DJ Moore and obviously CMC when he's healthy, I'm not wanting anybody in that offense right now. So I'm smashing Amari Cooper, and I think it's a huge game for him. So Ashton, hopefully that helps you out. All right, next up is Adrian says, who should I start? Pick 2 in a full PPR league. Kenny Galladay, Cortland Sutton, Brandon Ayuk, Will Fuller, or Robbie Anderson. Britt, let's kick it to you first.
Never Anderson. Never, ever Anderson. I think for me, it's going to be Ayuk for sure. What we saw from last week was just an uptick. He's been a player I've been trying to desperately get a share of. in my dynasty leagues unsuccessfully thus far, but I expect him to have a very good game against Seattle's extraordinarily porous and disappointing defense, although it should be a pretty fun game. Usually are at the Niners. I already mentioned how much I dislike Golladay. I just don't trust them, and I can't until I see it, which leads me to Mr. Courtland Sutton, someone who was not needed to be utilized as against the Jets. Now they're playing a team that he's actually going to be needed. No Marcus Peters means he's not going to have a blanket cover. So I like Sutton. He's going to be a great contributor all year.
Love it. Brian.
I'm right there with Sutton and Ayuk. Like Britt was saying, he hit an uptick in usage last week in terms of Ayuk. He had 86% of the snaps. And then on the Sutton side, we had the injury to Hamler, and Judy's still out. He's going to get a ton of targets. I'm pretty much guaranteeing 10 plus. So those are my two as well.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Sutton, Ayuk. I think the targets are there for Sutton for sure in a game where, I think they're going to need to keep up with Baltimore, right? And with Marcus Peters out for the season and Marlon Humphreys shifting over, I don't think they have the ability nor the capability to kind of shadow coverage or anything like that. So Denver's going to move Courtland Sutton around a little bit and be able to play opposite of Marlon Humphreys in given situations. So I think he's a smash play as well. And then Brandon Ayuk, I'm not going to add anything there. He is also my second pick as well. So Adrian, hope that helps you out. Next up is Jeremy, says Kenny Galladay, Marquez Callaway, Robbie Anderson, Cordero Patterson, or Rondale Moore for my flex. I'm going to cut this down a little bit. I'm going to get rid of Marquez Callaway. I'm going to get rid of Robbie Anderson because I'm pretty much – there's no way those two guys are starting. So really it's between Kenny Galladay, Cordero Patterson, and Rondale Moore. So pick one, Brian.
I've got to go Rondale Moore. I realized he had 2 catches, I think, for -1 yard last week. And he's somewhere between last week and the week before where he just had that 75-yard touchdown, kind of a fluky play. But I'm still going with Rondale over those two.
Okay. Britt?
Yeah, I can't start Rondale. I can't do it. He's 3rd in targets. He's 4th in yards. He's 3rd in offensive production. He doesn't have the snap count remotely close to AJ Green or Christian Kirk or DeAndre Hopkins. So until I see something more, I cannot more. I cannot stop him or start him, which means I'm going to be starting. Oh man, yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Cordell Patterson. Who's that? Marcus Lattimore is going to put the vice grip on Kenny Galladay, and so Cordell Patterson has been someone that I came to a little late, but I've been riding a lot, especially in any sort of prop betting or lineup decisions. He's a wonderful filler in injuries and just shit matchups. So Patterson's someone that I'm going to be riding today.
Yeah, look, if this is a PPR league, to me, it's a smash play for Patterson out of these guys. He's gotten 7 targets the last 2 weeks. He is on the field only about 40% of snaps, so that's not great. Kenny Galladay is on the field. He's the alpha in the offense, especially with Sterling Shepard being out, Darius Slayton being out. So now you're going to see a little bit of Kadarius Toney possibly. And is it Colin Johnson that ended up there?
Yeah, Colin Johnson and
right? So none of those guys scare me for Kenny Galladay. The kicker is exactly what Britt said, and that's Marshawn Lattimore, right? That is a very solid corner, and Kenny Galladay is going to be matched up against him the large majority of that game, and I think there's a chance that kind of shuts him down a little bit. So I'm going, as much as it pains me here, and I want to start Kenny Galladay. I think the right floor play here, especially in a flex, is probably Cordero Patterson. So, all right, next question from Ron Windsor says, hey, is Melvin Gordon playing? And look, about 2 or 3 hours ago, they came out and said he's expected to play. You read into that however you want. He's a vet. I don't think you should read into practice reports too much about him sitting out or anything like that. But you better have a backup plan, right? So that's a 425 game. So if you play him, have somebody that you can swap him with, right? And without seeing your roster, we can't make a real suggestion there or anything like that. But as of a couple hours ago, he is expected to play. But like I said, take that grain take it with a grain of salt. Oh, Ron, you're golden. Put him in your lineup. If he's out, you smash Javonte Williams.
Yeah,
you smash Javonte Williams. Absolutely. Now, Naeem Hines is interesting, right? Very interesting. They're playing the Miami Dolphins, so I don't know that the game script is really going to be there. But Jonathan Taylor coming in with a little bit of an injury, so that's an interesting play. But I'm definitely playing Melvin Gordon out of these three, and if he ends up not playing, Javonte Williams is a smash, in my opinion. Britt, Brian, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, but now in regards to Gordon, it's not like he didn't miss any practice this week. He was limited in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's practice. So I think he's got a large percentage of playing. I'm well over 75%. I feel. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't see it that way. Reading tea leaves.
Love it. All right, there you go, Ron. So next up, Twitter question from Jamie Holden at Mantour Guy on Twitter says 12-team full PPR. I need my wide receiver 3 and my flex. Allen Robinson, Tim Patrick, Michael Pittman, and Chase Edmonds. Pick 2. Who are you going with? Let's go, Brian. Or actually, go ahead, Britt. Go ahead.
It's got to be. So Pittman's had an incredible uptick in yards, targets, everything. So sitting him would be borderline insanity, which really puts it down between Edmonds and Robinson for me. I'm gonna phrase it this way. I'm starting Edmonds for the floor, because I know he's going to give me a very solid contribution, and I know he's not going to lose me a week that Al Robinson's been able to do for 3 weeks. But if I feel that, and I don't want to suggest this too much because don't read too heavily into it, but if you're down quite a bit from Thursday night and you're like, I need a really high ceiling play, then I think that's when Allen Robinson comes in, because quite frankly, Chicago's about to get blown out by the Detroit Lions, and I'm here for it.
All right, Brian, where you at?
I had the hardest time with this, and I saw this on Twitter earlier. And for me, the only slam dunk is Edmonds. And in terms of the receivers, in all fairness, none of them have been outstanding through this year. And I know how bad the Bears looked last week, but for some reason, I feel like they're going to at least look a little better. Like Britt said, I could see them losing to the Lions for sure, but I'm going with A-Rob here.
I want to say Allen Robinson so bad. Like, it's killing me that he is just not performing right now. And I also expect that situation to change quite a bit today. But to Britt's point, you can't bench Michael Pittman right now. The guy's getting 12 targets over the last 2 games. He absolutely lit up the Los Angeles Rams with over 100 yards receiving on 12 targets. And that pass defense is much better than the Miami Dolphins. Now, the problem is, how are the Miami Dolphins going to use Xavier Howard? Are they going to shadow him? If they shadow Michael Pittman because they're not worried about Paris Campbell or Zach Pascal, now I'm a little worried about Michael Pittman because I don't think he's good enough to beat Xavier Howard one-on-one in man coverage. Now, if they're playing zone, he can make that work, but you can't bench him right now, especially after what you've seen from Allen Robinson. And look, he had one serviceable week in week 2, but that was on the back of that touchdown. Without the touchdown, he'd have gotten you like 3 or 4 points. He didn't do anything outside of that. So I'm also rolling out Chase Edmonds and Michael Pittman. I'm still holding out hope for A-Rob, though. Don't move him yet. You'd be selling him entirely too low. All right, Ron asks, hey, Teddy B or Ryan Tannehill? Teddy B against the Baltimore Ravens, Ryan Tannehill up against the New York Jets with no out A.J. Brown, no Julio Jones. Feels really gross. Brian, where you at, man?
Gosh, you asked the toughest ones for sure. Oh, boy. I guess I'll go – I don't know. I guess I'll go Bridgewater. He's been good so far. It's really hard to ever trust Teddy B, to be honest, but – for some reason, I'm just leaning towards him just because, like you said, who are the Titans going to pass to is my only concern. And playing against the New York Jets, I could see Derrick Henry having upwards of 25-plus carries in this one and just basically not needing to throw in the second half. So for lack of a better option, I'll just go with Bridgewater.
All right, Britt? Bridgewater or Tannehill?
Just off the top of your head, do you guys know what the Vegas line is set for Derrick Henry's rushing yards this week?
Oh my God, probably 115 or more.
121 and a half.
Yep.
121 and a half. That is the highest line I've ever seen. So what that tells me is while Chester Rogers and the ghost of Josh Reynolds and Nick Keen Westbrook is going to get involved a little bit, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the guy. It's going to be a game. It's going to be the first test for the Broncos, and I think that they're going to come prepared. And so I'm happily going Bridgewater here.
Yeah, I think I got to go Bridgewater too. The thing that scares me about this is Ryan Tannehill's rushing touchdown upside, right? There are so many times that they get down into the red zone inside the 10-yard line and Ryan Tannehill rushes that ball in. And all he needs is one of those and some passing yards to be a pretty solid start, to be honest. But I can't go away from Teddy Bridgewater right now. We talked about his schedule and how it wasn't great, but so the New York Jets was a blowout last week, right? So that game you almost kind of have to throw out where he ended up with like 10 or 12 points at the quarterback position. But those other two games, it was somewhat competitive. New York Giants, he ended up scoring 25 PPR or 25 points and 25 again against Jacksonville. So you think they're going up against the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to have to score some points. They're going to have to try to keep up with Lamar Jackson. And even if they get blown out of this game, this is almost like that DFS kind of play, right? What do we call them? Run backs, right? A run back or something like that, right? Where, hey, you expect one team to just destroy the other team. But because of that, the other team's going to have to throw to try to keep up. And there's going to be those garbage time passes, garbage time touchdowns and things like that. So I'm going Teddy Bridgewater here, not because I think it's a blowout, but because I think it's going to be a competitive game. And you've seen what Teddy B does in competitive games so far this year.
Yeah, on that DFS, it's comeback players.
Comeback, that's what it is. I don't know why I said run back. Comeback players, thank you. All right, next up. Actually, before we get Andrew to yours, Maddie, dude, we wish you could join us, but we know you're out there doing bigger and better things right now, making that money. So thank you. He's calling us a bunch of studs. He's only saying that though because Britt's got his clothes on right now. So I mean, it might be different if he had no clothes on, but either way. So let's get to Andrew's question. He says, start one. It's Myles Gaskin, the gas can, Kenny G and those smooth moves, or Trey Sermon and that shit that he's done the last 3 weeks. So where are we at, Brian, between these three?
I'm actually going Gaskin. I'm just hoping that he gets more opportunities for carries because his yards per carry on the year has been right at 5, but his highest rush total, I think, was around 13. I don't remember off the top of my head what he had last week, but prior to that, it had been 9. So I'm just hoping for more opportunities. It should be a competitive game. The Dolphins are actually 2-point favorites at home, so I'm going Gaskin.
All right, Britt, where are you at?
This is rough. Seattle's defense is absolute ass. Trey Sermon looked like I don't want to say that. Trey Sermon looked disappointing last week. And Myles Gaskin, for whatever reason, Brian Flores just really likes elevating his yards per carry at 5 and then giving him no more than 7 carries a game. That being said, I'm going to go Gaskins here. I think he's got the better catching upside. He's got a floor for scoring touchdowns, assuming Malcolm Brown stops scoring from 32 yards out.
Yeah, for me, this is where my belief that Kenny Golladay sees a little bit of uptick comes into play. Look, the offensive-defensive line matchup for Miami and Indianapolis is not the greatest. The Indianapolis Colts defense, don't get me wrong, has not looked great this year, but they have one of these stud linebackers in Darius Leonard, and I think that guy is great against the run. So I worry a little bit about Gaskin. He's not getting the work that we had kind of hoped that he was, right? When they signed Malcolm Brown, we said, we're not worried about him. It's going to be the Gaskin and Ahmed show, and that hasn't even come to fruition. So I'm sitting Gaskin. I'm going. So then it's between Kenny Golladay, Trey Sermon. And look, what I saw from Trey Sermon last week did not impress me. He did not look good, granted, in even the work that he got. So I'm going Kenny Golladay, again, a guy who needs one big play because he's that down the field threat. And that's really what you're looking at here. Gaskin can give you an absolute dud of a game. Trey Sermon can give you an absolute dud of a game, but neither one of those guys are giving you an explosive down the field play where I think Kenny Golladay has the potential for that. So I'm going Kenny G and his smoothness, even against Marshawn Lattimore and the New Orleans Saints.
Brad, let me
Yes,
sneak
sir.
one. Let me sneak one in here real quickly.
Go ahead.
Standard league: Allen Robinson or Darrell Henderson?
A standard league. I'm going to go Darrell Henderson if he's healthy, obviously, if he's playing. I just think the guy gets more work and enough work to end up with a touchdown for you. And I just don't know that the Bears are going to score, you know?
If you start Darrell Henderson, and he doesn't start, you're going to be needing to either start Damian Harris or Rondale Moore.
I hate Damian Harris.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd end up oh man, that's gross.
Allen Robinson, right? It has to be.
Yeah, I think it might have to be at that point because your options to replace him are
way worse.
Ass. Yeah.
Infinitely
yep.
worse.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Nope. Yeah. Was that your own start sit question?
God, no. I would never take
all
over and monopolize this for my own benefit.
Oh, geez. I love it. All right, Ron, we're going to hit you up one more time. He says, I need one in a standard league. Is it Brandon Ayuk, David Johnson, or Corey Davis? Brian, where you at?
I'm on Ayuk. I was an Ayuk fan during the summer. Even took the time to write an article about him. And finally, he got his snap share last week. I'm going with Ayuk.
Britt?
Yeah, so someone mentioned earlier in the week that whenever Deontay Johnson comes back into the week or into a game not fully healthy, he has a magical sense of never finishing the game healthy or finishing the game. And for whatever reason.
This may change our mind a little bit. He also has Deontay Johnson available out of those four. So it'd be Ayuk, Deontay Johnson. Oh, I'm sorry. It is Deontay Johnson, not David Johnson.
Not David Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That's Deontay Johnson or Corey Davis. Sorry.
It changes my mind. I'm going Deontay.
No.
It's a standard league, so Deontay doesn't carry as much upside. I'm going Ayuk here. Touchdown potential. He had 3 red zone targets last week, and he once again, the Seattle's defense is not good, and Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance is going to eat them up.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go Ayuk. Also, typically I would say Deontay Johnson, but that weather looks bad for that Green Bay Pittsburgh game. The weather is not good. Now, typically rain doesn't necessarily mean that it's not good for the passing game. But when I think Ben Roethlisberger in that offense and the weather and no Chase Claypool for Jair Alexander to worry about, now I start to question myself a little bit. You saw Najee Harris with 19 targets last week. Now I think the majority of that is because Deontay Johnson was out and then Juju Smith-Schuster went out in game. But now Deontay and Juju are back. I do think that Deontay is going to see targets. He did get a red zone target in week 1 or 2. But I just don't know that I can trust a standard league to be counting on that. So I'm also going Brandon Ayuk as well. All right, let's move on to TS. It says Chuba Hubbard or Kareem Hunt in my flex. And then in my wide receiver position, Michael Pittman Jr., Hollywood, Marquise Hollywood Brown, or Tim Patrick. PPR league. Britt, go ahead.
So it's got to be Hunt. I mean, Chuba's got a decent matchup. But not to the point where you're just gonna. He's not an auto play right now. It's gonna be an interesting game, but it's not something that I'm itching to start him against. Dallas's defense isn't that bad, surprisingly, this year, which leads me to your flex. I don't like Marquise Brown. I'm not calling him Hollywood yet until he actually catches the fucking ball. Which leaves Tim Patrick or Michael Pittman Jr. I actually really, really like Tim Patrick. It's contrarian. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I think this matchup right now against the Ravens is going to get their number 3 corner now that Peters is out, and they're going to be spending a lot of time making sure Fant doesn't eat up the middle. I think this is going to be a really, really good Patrick week. So I'm going to go Patrick here, Hunt and Patrick.
Hunt and Patrick. Britt or Brian, where are you at?
to me, Hunt's a definite slam dunk. I love all the new sexy rookie names and stuff, but until they prove something, I have to go with the proven veteran for sure. And then the other question, really, to me, is whether you need upside or not. Hollywood Brown, like you said, can't catch anything, but he actually dropped 2 touchdown passes. So if you need upside, he's definitely your play. And if you feel comfortable with the week and you just need like an average amount of points, go Tim Patrick for the safer floor.
All right, I'm going to squash all this Hollywood Brown hate. So on the year, Hollywood Brown has 2 drops. They both came last week. Week 1 and week 2, he had no drops. Week 1, he caught every ball that was thrown his way for 70 yards and a touchdown. Week 2, he had 6 catches for 113 and a touchdown. Like you said, he dropped 2 touchdown balls last week. 2 touchdown balls. This guy's getting the volume. He's down the field. He's catching touchdowns. This guy before last week was a top 15 wide receiver. Do not let recency bias fuck you out of playing the player that you should play right now. To me, this is a smash in Hollywood Brown over Michael Pittman Jr. or Tim Patrick, and I'm playing Kareem Hunt as well at the running back position. Because I was so against the 2 of you with Hollywood Brown, I do want to give you a chance to rebuke, because I don't want the last person that gets heard be the person that's the loudest necessarily.
You do know that Hollywood's going to be going up against Curtis or
the rookie,
Surtain,
the rookie,
and then also Jordan Simmons over the top. One of the
I'm not worried about it.
Defense.
Nope.
Okay.
Not
We're not
worried
worried
about
about that. Cool.
Nope.
Cool. All right.
I mean, did
All
it matter when he
right.
played?
Right.
Never mind. I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
That's fine.
There's nothing better than lighting a fire under Brad's ass about Marquise
right.
Brown.
No, as my boy, I wrote an article about him before he exploded last year. About 2 weeks before he ended up finishing, if you go from week 10 to 17 as the wide receiver 13, I'm on board with this guy, and he just continued to prove it in week 1 and 2. And now because he had a couple drops, people are like, oh my God, you can't trust him. That's asinine. That's absolutely crazy. Everybody likes Jerry Jeudy. How many drops does he have? Right? Everybody likes DeAndre Hopkins. How many drops does he have? I'm not comparing Hollywood to DeAndre Hopkins, but drops don't mean shit.
And don't forget Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. And people love Deontay Johnson because he gets targets. So, but moving on. Hey, Ron, anytime, man, you jump on here, you ask some questions. We'll be more than happy to answer them. Hit us up on Twitter. We'll answer them, one-on-one. We don't even need to do it live stream wise. Thank you for subscribing. We love it. And we hope that we made the right calls for you and set you up for success. So appreciate it, man.
Denver's number 5 in pass DVOA.
Say that again.
Denver's number 5 in pass DVOA.
Bro. Okay. So we're going to go through this real quick. We'll get to one more question. One more question before we move on. So let's see who the Denver Broncos have played. Okay. They played Daniel Jones and the New York Giants in week 1. Don't care. They played Trevor Lawrence in his 3 interception game in week 2. And then they played the New York Jets last week in Zach. I don't give a flying F what their DVOA is right now. They played 3 of the worst. As a matter of fact, have any of those teams won a game yet? They're all 0-3 right now. The Giants, 0-3. I'm looking. Giants, 0-3. Jets, 0-3. Jacksonville, 0-4. Get out of here with that.
It's the
DVOA top 5. That is why you don't just look at stats, because it doesn't mean squat.
Especially this early in the season. That's one thing I was looking at yesterday. Last year, against both quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends, they were top 13 in terms of fantasy points given up. And so far this year, the Broncos defense is actually given the least 3. So I'm not putting much volume to that at all.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong.
Staley is out. Villanueva's banged up. Lamar Jackson is banged up.
We'll see.
I'm just saying it's not as big of a hit as you want it to be.
Yeah. All right. So I want to move us on. We could debate this all day long. I can be loud and obnoxious, and then Britt can get loud, and it's not going to help anybody, right? So just look at it yourself. Figure out, do you trust Hollywood? The Lamar Jackson being hurt could be a good or a bad thing. Depends on what you look at. And is Denver's defense legit? Right? Because it has looked that way through 3 weeks. So let's get one more question out there answered before we hop off, because we all need to go back and do those last-minute lineup checks for any surprise outs. So Ben says, Mike Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Nyheim Hines. Pick one. Britt.
Never Mike Davis. Never, ever, ever, ever.
He's
ever,
been
ever,
preaching
ever,
that
ever,
since
Mike
week
Davis.
1.
Never, ever Mike Davis. Ever, ever. Fuck no. Nyheim Hines is set up really nicely this week, as is Juju. That being said, I'm going to go with Nyheim Hines here. He is someone that that I'm feeling really good about this week. And if I had to plant my flag on a player that's probably going to exceed expectations of the 3, I'd say Nyheim Hines is that for me.
All right, Brian.
I'm going Juju. Of course, I'm a Steelers fan, but that has nothing to do with this. It's more about the fact that Claypool's out. I think that Juju will do quite well. I actually think the Steelers will make this get more competitive than what most people think. Also,
yeah, this is tough, but I think I'm leaning Nyheim Hines here. That's hard. He did have a dud for you in week 2 against the LA Rams in a game where they needed to throw the ball. But the other 2 weeks against Seattle and Tennessee, in games where they didn't necessarily need to throw the ball, he saw 8 targets and 6 targets. So you're playing with fire a little bit, but I think Nyheim Hines against the Miami Dolphins, it's going to be a somewhat competitive game, which is going to play in his favor a little bit, I think. So I'm going to go Nyheim Hines. And again, the weather to me is a big factor right now in that Green Bay-Pittsburgh game. They're calling for thunderstorms, so there could be like lightning delays and things like that come into play that just throws teams off their game a little bit. So I'm probably staring away from Juju right now.
When it comes to weather, you need to look for 3 things. Are the winds above 25 miles an hour? Are the rains going to be torrential downpours? And then is it going to be cold? Those are the 3 things that really impact the game to a point where you actually have to pay attention. And to my knowledge, thunder's bad because they're going to stop the game and they're going to delay it. Yep. But that doesn't necessarily precipitate that. Another pun, LOL. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a torrential downpour. And as long as you can get out of the torrential downpour, you should be good to go.
All right, we got 2 questions. I want to rapid fire just to get these out for people before they need to set their lineups because it is 12:50. So just a real quick, no explanation from Joey Breen says Robert Woods, Miles Sanders, Cordero Patterson. For me, it's Miles Sanders smash out of these 3. Brian.
Sanders.
Britt.
Robert Woods.
Oh, man. All right. From I'm a Bot, he says Steelers D or Bears D. I'm going to go Bears D here. Britt.
Waiver wire. Fucking waiver wire.
That's gross.
Don't do it. DM me on Twitter, the FF Sandman. Send me who's available. Let's get you a better defense than that.
All right, Brian.
Out of those choices, Bears.
All right. From 2 Hype 2.0, this is a PPR league. He says Brandon Cooks, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, pick 2. For me, that is going to be Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin. Brian.
I've got the last 2, Ridley, Cooper.
Britt.
Godwin for sure. And I want Ridley so bad though.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you what, for this being your lineup, you don't have a lot of things to work out. I don't think you can go wrong unless you go with Mike Evans, really, because he's the guy that can absolutely screw you. And when you have the upside and the volume of these other guys, you can't play Evans right now. So between Cooks, Godwin, Ridley, and Cooper, pick any 2 and you're probably solid. Sounds like Cooper and Godwin got 2, Ridley got 2. So it's, between those 3 now, what you're looking at. You got time for one more, guys? Real quick?
Absolutely.
All right. So he needs 2 wide receivers and 1 flex in a standard league. His options are Antonio Brown, Robert Woods, Michael Pittman, Jacoby Myers for wide receivers. And then for running backs, David Montgomery, Trey Sermon, Nyheim Hines, Alexander Magnuson. So basically his entire lineup. Who do you start?
My God.
For me, I'll let you guys read it because I've been reading it for a while. For me, the running backs are David Montgomery and Nyheim Hines. Alexander Madison should be out of your lineup altogether. Dalvin Cook is playing. Kenny Gainwell didn't get as much work, and you saw actually Boston Scott go in the game at the end of that game last week, and then Trey Sermon I'm not testing. So David Montgomery, Nyheim Hines. And then for the wide receivers, I'm going Michael Pittman and Antonio Brown. Brian.
Who are you flexing?
The only thing I can guarantee I would start for sure is Montgomery or Brown, and then I'll be honest, the rest of it I'd have to look at it a little bit further. So those are my 2.
Okay.
All right. So Tyson Williams is going to be someone you need to actually pay attention to in his workload. Yep. They just said that it just came out similar to how they did in DeAndre Swift week 1, that Latavius Murray is going to be getting the lead back role, which we've been kind of seeing transition for the next 2 weeks. So that means that Tyson Williams is no longer relevant, which means that you have to do Montgomery and Hines. As for your flex, I think I would probably stick in Sermon, see if he can get a touchdown. And for your wide receivers, it's got to be Woods and it's got to be AB. There's just, when it comes to that, you don't get cute. You don't get cute. You go and play your studs and you try to get the rest going. It's not a bad team, though.
Okay. Britt, I'm a bot, is going to check you out. I sent him your Twitter handle because he asked for that. So he's going to send you a note. So keep an eye out for that because it's going to have to be kind of quick, right?
Yep,
and then the last one, and we got to sign off because we've got lineups. We got to double check as well. So Desert Dog 7 says, are Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Lockett worth starting? He's got Damian Harris, Jacoby Myers, Naeem Hines. I'm not replacing any of those guys with as guys. I'm keeping Jonathan Taylor and keeping Saquon Barkley and Tyler Lockett in my lineups for those three as my options. Brian, Britt, do you have any difference in opinion?
No, they're locked and loaded as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Britt?
not at all.
All right. Another week in the books. We're crushing it. We hope that you win this pivotal week 4 matchup. If you're 2-1, if you're 1-2, you either separate, like Britt said, Eric mentioned to us, you either separate yourself from the pack, you stay in the middle, or you have to really start thinking about some things if you fall to 1-3. So hopefully you do not fall to that 1-3 mark because of those start-sit decisions that we hope you make today. So good luck and enjoy your week 4 matchups. Peace.
See y'all. Deuces.